You gotta make sure you stay hydrated. Otherwise, you get a with your insides. Your insides don't do so good if you're dehydrated. Alrighty. There's a reason why I have to make this video. I just want to put it out there that I'm feeling very frustrated. And I'm being very indecisive. And as I feel into this indecision that I have, it's like anything that I do is not good enough. And I've done this with my artwork too. Like, I've done this with like sketches and stuff. I wanted to do a comic, but I like abandoned that because I just got frustrated. Yeah, the guinea pigs are not getting along. Yeah, one does not know how to respect boundaries. But anyway, so I've been feeling frustrated. And it happens with my writing, it happens with just about anything. And every time I get frustrated, I just keep thinking about the opinions that people have and how frustrated it made me feel to hear that somebody doesn't like what I'm doing. And that even though they may be a parent or a teacher, some kind of authority figure, to hear somebody say that they don't like what I'm doing has somehow gripped me, saying that no matter what I do, it's not going to be good enough. It's like I'm so hyper fixated on like the opinion of other people, because somehow in the arts, in music, in different disciplines, especially the subjective ones, people can be very opinionated. And sometimes there are just people that go out of the way just to say something to make you feel bad. So it's like I get really stopped up. I have like creative constipation because what I want to do involves composition. But what I did was I made this little book because I figured I can make a little book. I could take it with me, write down whatever I'm picking up on, inspirational wise. And to just get in the habit of like writing things down and to stop, harassing myself about whether or not it's proper use of harmony or like musical rules. For whatever reason, I feel like I'm very like hung up on the best practices of music composition. Like, how am I going to compose something if I don't understand the rules enough to really write something good? And I just get so stuck. And I know last night, yesterday, just about, depending on how late I put this video up, I talked to the Heavenly Father, and I get to asking him, I'm like, why am I so hesitant to make a decision? Why am I second guessing myself? And then he basically wrapped me up in love and kind of just had this heart to heart with me. I feel like crying right now. Had this heart to heart with me that it was more about the authority figures that I had in my life. Not just this immediate life, but in different lifetimes. But, one in particular, one being my dad. who I had a lot of negative feelings about when I was growing up. And this was like a handful of lifetimes ago at this point, because apparently I've lived more than one lifetime kind of almost simultaneously. So how I figured that out was like I was split off into two different directions, and then it kind of came back together into this body. So sometimes it feels like I'm still mending pieces of myself together, and it's just because of the trauma. So I think about growing up under like the instruction of somebody that was really overbearing and mean, and how it kind of just made me very inflexible at times. To me, it's like I remembered having to follow just a really strict set of rules, and then just not being allowed to explore my, creative expression, and not be allowed to just be myself, that I had to wait for permission to do something. So when it finally came to, understanding where my creative constipation is coming from, the Lord has also shown me another person that I've respected, but I've felt very frustrated about. And it was Haydn. So he was a teacher of mine, and I was incredibly hard headed about things because I was grown up under the heavy hand of my father, and I really just wanted to, like, you know, get things done and to advance myself. But I struggled to really wrap my head around why music has all these little rules when my own creative expression very much just wants to deviate from these strict rules. Like, I very much just wanted to get away from like the constrictiveness of conformity and to really branch off and distinguish myself. And I felt so frustrated because I felt incredibly stupid. I felt dumb. And it almost felt like that I wasn't being taken seriously. Because, like, I wanted to learn, but I was frustrated at how slow it was taking me to learn how to write actual music rather than just mimicking somebody's style, to actually learn how to think musically. And it was very frustrating because it wasn't like I hated my teacher. I was mostly just frustrated. I was frustrated a lot of times about myself and my connection with people around me, because sometimes I felt like people were not really or were not really receptive to my own side of the story. They weren't really open to like how I saw things. But at the same time, how I saw things was, influenced by, my parent, who basically tried to determine a path for me that wasn't where I'm supposed to be going. Because in his mind, the popular thing was Mozart. Because Mozart was this very prodigious child who grew up to be this really like talented and skillful adult. And my dad wanted me to basically, be like a mini Mozart, to which that would be impossible because that's not my personality. Mozart and I are two very different personalities. And for me to try to fit into somebody else's shoes just because somebody's expectations of me were, you know, all or nothing, pretty much set me up to feel like I was an outcast and constantly having to just prove myself. So right now I'm in a state of being almost teary eyed. Like I feel myself wanting to just cry because it was a lot of work. Music composition didn't come easy to me because one, I'm dyslexic. So I knew it came to me more easily than writing, like actual language came easier to me than reading actual language. Music is a more of a simplified language because it's a bit more like iconography, where you get used to like certain shapes and it tends to be really repetitive because it's just a handful of shapes that you're using, but just in different places. So it's a bit more of a spatial thing. It's kind of like, if reading a book is more of a left brain activity, then writing music is a little bit more of a right brain activity. That's kind of how I think of it. Except where I struggled is the approach to teaching music was too left brained and I was not grasping what was going on. I didn't, like I said, I didn't hate my teacher, but I really felt like almost like he didn't want to be too critical of me, because I this is the thing. It's like I never realized that people basically read my face more easily than I realized. I kind of grew up thinking that my face was rather like straightforward and not showing people how I felt. And it was like, no, people pretty much read what I was feeling on my face. And a lot of it had to do with the way my eyebrows would come together, with the change in my eyes, and then the corners of my mouth, because sometimes I just felt so strongly, like emotionally, about a lot of different things. And especially if somebody were to tell me, no, you can't do that, it reminds me of the restrictiveness that my dad had. And it just became so frustrating because it's like, how do I do things the right way? Like, how do I do things the way that would make people, see that I can actually do what I want to do? And I don't know. I was actually kind of just looking for problems in different places to kind of just have issue, because I don't recall him being particularly like, I don't know, restrictive. It's like I would say that there were mistakes in my work that he would fail to correct, allegedly, is what I would say. It that is But I think in just talking to people, that's kind of what they thought I was saying. It's like what I was actually trying to say was that he was just being too gentle in his direction with me. My dad was very like violent at times. So I was more accustomed to being somebody that was just pretty much like they laid it down, and you either have to like follow what they said or be punished for it. Never got that with Haydn. Like, he was just, he had his own, viewpoint on things, but he really just didn't want me to feel like he was going to be restrictive on what I did. Like, he showed me the ropes, but his attitude was that he was not going to Why do I feel like crying? It's hard. It's hard to talk about it because I think God just wants me to put it out there. He just wants me to put it out there that I had some good teachers. And, you know, they saw that I came across a kind of a very like hard-headed individual, and it wasn't like I was stupid. I was very stubborn. And I was definitely very stubborn. I was molded by the environment I grew up in, and what helped to soften me up was, having a second mother. But aside from that, like I was very much determined to, be self-made. And it was just like I couldn't I couldn't cope with somebody not being hard on me. I could not cope with that. It baffled me. Like if I was gonna learn from a teacher, my perception was is that, you know, they needed to be kind of a hard ass. In because that's what I grew up knowing. Like, yeah, I had a piano teacher, um, because my dad was a singer, didn't really play keyboard, so then he had to bring somebody in to teach me. But my dad was very much there supervising. So so I had somebody riding my ass like the whole time. Like if I didn't get up, he made sure I got up. And then he wanted to make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and just kind of micromanaged everything. But my teachers beyond that didn't really do that with me. And that was frustrating. I had a hard time reconciling with the extreme need for like somebody to beat me in submission, and then being uncomfortable with somebody was just very permissive of what I was doing. So I'm locked in this battle where it's like I'm fighting against this idea where I have to be somehow good enough to have the approval of a certain authority figure. Like, who is it that I need approval from? And that's what I keep thinking about. I think the big thing I think about is my dad. Because the thing that I have difficulty in this life is that I very much don't have a trained musical ear, but I'm working on it. So it's slow progress there, but it's triggering the feelings that I have when I was losing my hearing in that other life, where I all these insecurities just kept popping up, almost like a snowball going downhill. It just kept coming over and over and over. And it's like constantly trying to avert disaster at every which turn. And my solution for that was to really just basically shut people out of my life, because it I felt so devastated. And my devastation is that without, without the gifts that I had, I was nobody. Like I just kept trying to run away from the crushing defeat of my own trauma, because I didn't really want to deal with it, and I kept trying to run away from it. And I think this is why it's being brought up in this life at this moment, and why I'm talking into the camera about it, is that people are haunted by their trauma. And it pretty much, whatever you go through in your childhood shapes your entire life, unless you were a person that somehow shrugged it off. And a lot of people don't know how to shrug it off. They kind of carry it as a chip on their shoulder, or they kind of use it as a way to motivate themselves. But when something gets to be too difficult, it like falls in on them like a collapsed roof. Like how the snow on the roof gets to being too much and then it just collapses. Kind of like that. It's like you can only be so strong in carrying burdens while pretending they're not there and then just forging ahead because you somehow have the determination to like prove it to yourself or prove it to other people that you are able to make something of yourself. And it doesn't take people down a good path, because if say you like racing, you drive a race car, but then somehow, in between one race and the next, you get into a horrific accident where they're going to have to basically amputate both your legs and then you lose your chance to race. Do you stop being worthy just because you don't have your legs anymore? And it's like, I feel like people place so much stock on tying their worth into the activity that they're passionate about. And that, for me, as I'm learning, is music. And I'm horribly hung up on whether or not I can ever get back to, being capable of writing exquisite music that elevates the soul and gets them closer to the divine. Like, I get so hung up on the idea that whatever I'm going to write is just not going to be respected and that it's going to be made fun of. And that's what I think about. It's like, am I going to be able to produce something that's not going to be made fun of and made, am I going to be made a mockery? Because clearly it's something I haven't really addressed before. I know I've had a tendency to hang on to things, but it's just like, just imagine how dumb I must have felt, being found out, or that I'm basically can't hear worth the crap. It's like, just imagine how devastated. It's like, I can't recall everything in like extreme detail, but I do remember a moment. And I remember a moment where it just seemed like, because there's many moments. I've had many moments where I just felt utterly embarrassed. So there wasn't just one moment, there were many. And I felt really embarrassed about this moment because it was like somehow the universe wouldn't let me pretend that everything was okay. Because I know the Heavenly Father, and He loves me so much, and I know that the way He teaches me is He's not gonna let me pretend like everything's okay. So I get into these situations where I just end up feeling really dumb and embarrassed. But it's really to strip me down into like this vulnerable state and to just say, what I'm doing is not healthy for my well-being. Like, I've always had this attitude of like okay, like, it's gonna be good enough for me to just do these projects on my own as long as nobody has to see it. But the thing is, it's like, I'm not gonna be allowed to just, do projects and then act like it's good enough. Like, I'm writing something here, but I'm not entirely happy about it because it's like, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. And I get to doubting myself. I get to being like, it just doesn't make sense. I get to being like, it's not voiced right. It's not, proper. I just beat it all to heck, and then I give up. And the ruler of the universe is not letting me do that. He's wanting me to be vulnerable and to stop hiding things from people, because I have to stop being afraid of being a mockery. If people are going to laugh at me for like how sad this looks in comparison to a piece that I wrote that they said was peak. I got a big fat pad of paper here. Yeah, well, that's a sharp contrast between this and this. Like, the two are nowhere near the same skill level. And to me, in all honesty, feels embarrassing. It feels incredibly embarrassing. Because it's like, I lived a life where I was able to just write music, and the darndest of music, like good music, just I'm like, yeah, like, even though it was unconventional and, you know, created an uproar at moments, but it was my music. It was an expression of my soul, and I feel rather embarrassed that there's so much I don't remember. It's like I get to thinking about Karl Kempinski. So if you know, he's I believe he suffered from a stroke a little while back. And if you know his artwork, it's impeccable artwork. His sketches are really good. It's got like this really nice grittiness to it, but it's like the characters are alive. And so when he had the stroke, he was very frustrated that he couldn't just draw or sketch at the level that he was able to prior. And what he went through and what I'm going through are different. Like, I didn't stroke out. It's just reincarnation and realizing that music that I wrote here, this music that I wrote here is so much better than the music I'm trying to write here. But I feel like if I just stop judging the heck out of the stuff I'm doing and just, not ridiculing myself, which is what I'm kind of doing at moments. And it's just because I knew that from experience, people made fun of me. So, like, I was aware. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't unaware that people were making fun of me. I had awareness that people were mocking me behind my back. I just never really brought it up. So, I do feel a little better. It's still hard because I still feel, sad that I woke up to this immense love of music, but somehow life hasn't taken me into that direction. Somehow I grew up feeling like the odd one out and nobody took me seriously. And then people that wanted to give me compliments about my musicianship, like, I couldn't accept it because I grew up in a family where the work I wanted to do on my instrument of the time, the bassoon, that just wasn't important to them. It didn't matter. None of it really mattered. And I just think about how much I felt, like my life was so insignificant to other people. Like, the kind of work I did, like, all the hard work I did just didn't matter because it was like, they were the kind of people to tell me, like, for example, like, if we were going to have a Thanksgiving dinner and I say I'm vegetarian and there's things I can't eat. Literally, what one of them told me was like, well, just make your own food and bring it. Like, I'm being invited to dinner, but you're just telling me to make my own food. And that's how people treated me. It's like, why? But, a couple days ago, because Turkey Day was Thursday, somebody I became acquainted with at pickleball, um, Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes Monday, Wednesday, but mostly Tuesday, Thursday. And this woman, she approached me and she said, "Are you doing anything for Thanksgiving?" And I told her, "No, not usually." And it's really because people don't think of me. I would like to not be lonely during the holidays because it's like, here's me, and then there's the guinea pigs way over yonder. And it gets lonely. And so this woman invites me, and literally, this person I don't know that well goes out of her way to make me a bunch of food that I can eat. I didn't get told to make my own food and bring it. Like, I didn't get treated like garbage. It's like I've grown up knowing that people didn't take me seriously. They didn't respect my choices. They didn't care that I had dietary needs. It is so baffling. They didn't care that I had a recital, a graduation recital. It's like my mom went out of her way to let them know, hey, there's a recital coming up and we're going to hand out invitations. We handed out invitations, but then a handful of people show up, and it was like one family, mostly, and then a couple other people. And that was it. Because somebody else had a birthday party and people rather go to a birthday party. And that was how little people cared about my existence. It's like such an experience that made me feel so rather insignificant. So I have these hang-ups, I have these insecurities because I've grown up feeling like my existence was nothing. Oh, so and so's got a championship lacrosse game. We're going to that. It's like, you're out of luck because we don't, like, you're not that impressive. We're not going to go watch your game. It's like, well, thanks. It's like, you're out of luck because you play an instrument that only nerds play. Oh, thanks. And I'm like, bassoon wasn't a bad instrument, but I learned that it's not an instrument that I cared about very much. I know for college, I thought, I can't get in on saxophone, and I thought, we'll try for bassoon, because at the time, the bassoon studio in Fredonia State was very small. So I thought, we'll get on a bassoon. And I wanted to be a music performer. I wanted to get into composition. But at the same time, my opinion on myself was just so rock bottom that I just felt that there was no chance in the world that I could get anywhere. And it was just, I was very good at breaking my own heart because I just grew up feeling so neglected at times. Because, like, what was different between this life and the other life was my dad couldn't impose upon me. Like, I had no talents to speak of, in his opinion. Like, my sister always did better than me, in his opinion. So, like, and what I felt from Heavenly Father was, if he had the inkling that he could get rich off of something and have it be, like, relatively easy, he would have taken that route, because a small part of him was still capable of doing that. And that's, if you know my dad from this lifetime, he is a major jerk. He's a major turd in a hat, because what he thought about was getting rich and being treated like he's high class, and then having to be like, oh yeah, this is my kid, blah blah blah, and it's like, I was like, oh my god, it's the only thing he wanted was like fame. Like, he wanted fame, prestige. He just wanted like a cushy life, and it's like, but he was an alcoholic, so how are you gonna have that if you're just gonna spend every penny you made? It's like, I don't know. But yeah, it was nonsensical. It was like, come on, dude. But yeah, I have baggage that I didn't resolve from that life, and it pretty much carried over into this, because like, okay, I'm I've more than once I had a fortune cookie telling me to play an instrument. True story. It's like it's like one that was real direct and other ones that kind of alluded to it, and I was just like, the universe is really persistent on getting me to learn an instrument. So I figured I'll start wrapping this video up, and if you relate, you relate. If you don't, that's okay. If you're in here and you're still watching, that's like cool, because I realize a lot of it is just me being emotional in front of the camera and just talking rather like, you know, honestly. Like, all I am is myself. I tell people, very often, all I could be is me. That's it. Like, I can't change myself to fit into a box. I can't do that. I could never do that. And my dad tried to make me a Mozart, and I'm like, I can't be a Mozart. It's just not gonna work. And I think ultimately that's why I struggled with Haydn, because it's like, he didn't want me to be a copy. It's like, yeah, he wanted me to learn some of what he knew, but he also wanted me to take what he showed me and to just make it my own. He didn't want me being a carbon copy. But I kept thinking back on what my dad wanted. Like, for whatever reason, I just kept him in the back of my mind. I'm like, it's so weird how a parent can live rent free in your head even after they die. And that whole time, it's just like, he didn't want me to be a copy of anybody. He just wanted me to, be able to acknowledge that I was his student. And it wasn't like it was a big, huge thing about ego either. It was just, he just wanted me to say, I wrote this piece of music, and he was my teacher. He didn't expect much of anything. But for whatever reason, like, I was real squirrely at times. I couldn't just accept that he genuinely cared. Like, so to conclude the video, it's like, after asking Heavenly Father about my insecurity, about why I'm so indecisive, he just showed me Haydn. He just showed me his portrait. Then he showed me the moment where it's like I was able to just approach him almost as if like I was apologizing for my behavior, and and in this feeling that I was given, it's like we just embraced. It was a loving hug, and it was just like, he didn't have any bad feelings about me. There was no ill will. There was nothing. It's just, he just wanted to know if I was okay. That was it. And it I couldn't handle it. I could not handle being treated with kindness. That that was like I've always grown very suspicious of people because I was expecting that underneath the surface people were just looking to use me. And if they were being kind, then it's just because they were trying to get me to reveal my weaknesses, and or they were just trying to, you know, find ways to take advantage of me. And I was a very conflicted individual. I was like, it reminded me of this life where I grew up just being, ugh, because of all the conflict that I've experienced in my life. I couldn't believe in goodness when it showed itself to me. But yeah, I wanted that. It was like a tug of war. So every time I think about writing music, there are times where it's like I feel so connected to it, and then that connection breaks, and it's like I have to stop being conflicted and just make peace with the past. And everybody needs to do that. Everybody needs to be able to just look at their past and just say, I can make peace with that and move on. It's just all of the baggage that Heavenly Father is bringing up for me, it happened in a different lifetime. So I'm having to look back and say, I can make peace with that. I was ridiculous at times, but it's okay because I understand why. So wherever you are in the world, it, I know this video went on forever. It's 42 minutes and several seconds. You know, just if you like what I'm doing, you know, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I'm not very good at editing. I don't like editing. I don't want to bother. And I don't, I'm poor. I don't have I don't have money to pay anybody to do any editing. So what you get is what you get, and we'll have a good night, and I'll see you another time.